Hey everyone, my name is Greg and welcome to my channel. In this two-part video, I'm going to show you exactly what you need to build a epoxy table. I'm going to give you step-by-step guidelines. I'm going to give you my complete thought process as I go through the epoxy table build. I'm going to show you all my mistakes and what I'm going to do differently on my next table. So the piece of wood I'm using for this project is locally sourced from the country I'm from, South Africa, and it's called Matumi. Straight off the bat, the first thing you need to do before you even start with your project is to check the moisture levels in your wood. The moisture levels in your slab needs to be between 8 and 12%. If it's more than 12%, that means there's too much moisture in your wood and it's not ready to be worked with. You can just buy a cheap moisture reader from Amazon and it's going to save you a ton of time and money. So unfortunately I'm not at the level yet where I can afford my own CNC machine. So I had to come up with another plan, so I designed and built my own router sled. So the purpose for your router sled is to flatten your slab on both sides. The whole idea for the router sled is to be able to run on an X and Y axis. As you can see, I used the 16mm MDF board and some steel beams on the side for some additional support. Adding a hole in the center of your MDF board for your router bit to be able to pass through. Now adding some sliding gate wheels for my jig to be able to move in the XY axle. The plan and design I had for my router sled is working perfectly. The next step in your project and before you start routering your table is to make sure that the surface you're working on is 100% level. If you get this step wrong, your table is not going to be straight on both sides. I can guarantee you that any slab you're working on is not going to be straight. As you can see, I'm adding some wedges underneath my table, so when I'm going to be flattening my top, my wood is not going to move at all. Now we're moving on to the flattening of your slab, and I'm going to use a flush trim bit for this process. And I'm only going to remove 2 to 3 millimeters of wood at a time. And honestly speaking, for my next epoxy table build, I am definitely going to try and eliminate this step, spending a few extra bucks to take my slab to a local supplier to be flattened. The total thickness for my slab was 4.3 inches thick, and I had to bring it down to 1.9 inches. By manually flattening my slab, it took me a total of 3 days. My shop was a complete mess. So if you decide to manually flattening your slab, I would definitely recommend doing it outside. If you are new to this channel and it's your first time here and you want to learn more how to DIY, make sure you subscribe to my channel, and if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. It's going to cost you nothing and it's definitely going to help the channel grow and for me to be able to make future content. The next step in your epoxy table build is actually to decide how your table is going to look at the end result. In my case, I already knew how my table is going to look. I just had to get the center point for my slab to be able to cut it in half. At this point I was extremely disappointed. The piece of wood you see here had a small crack we didn't see, and when we worked with the slab it actually broke off the original piece. At the end it was a blessing in disguise, so I did end up using this piece in the corner of the table. Now I'm just marking and going to cut it down to size, and I personally think this is the special feature for this table. The next step on your epoxy table build is to remove all the bark and softwood from your live edges. So I used the carpenter chisel to remove the bulkier pieces of bark on my table. When the bigger pieces of bark has been removed, you will see that there's softer wood that still needs to be removed. To remove the softer wood from your slab, I'm going to use a circular steel brush on my baby grinder. The circular steel brush is quite aggressive and it can damage your wood. That's why the next step we're going to use a wire steel brush. It's not so aggressive and it's going to remove all the markings your steel wire brush made into your live edge slab. And for all the spots my grinder didn't get in, I used the manual steel hand brush. You need to make sure that you remove all the softwood and dust particles on your live edge slab. Now we're moving on to the next step by building a mold for our epoxy table. I'm going to use a normal white melamine for my mold. So the specific table I'm building is 94.4 inches long, which is about 2.4 meters long, by 1 meters wide, which is about 39 inches. So the sides for my mold is obviously also white melamine wood, and I'm building it slightly higher than my table. And I'm just applying some additional wood glue for some extra strength, and then fastening it with my nail gun. So this is going to be the end of part 1. Next week I'm going to upload part 2 of this video, where we're going to discuss the final preparation for our table, where we're going to mix and pour our epoxy, the sanding process and the polishing process. Now before you go guys, remember to subscribe to my channel, and if you like this video, hit the thumbs up button. See you next week. Cheers.